Hello, David Metler here again. Renaissance Companies, Manager, Construction Technology, doing a multi-part webcast on how to get information out of Revit through Dynamo onto a remote server with it's a MySQL database sitting on a remote server. So step one is setting up the remote server. Now, one of the difficulties with sharing this information is that you're dealing with security issues with the IP addresses. There's just a lot of stuff it's difficult to share everything I did exactly because of the security issues involved. But I tried to outline it in such a way that I can share with you how I did things without giving you all the information. So, first step, I use Digital Oceans as my service to host these. They call them droplets, but basically that's just a virtual machine that sits on a server out there on the web. So I just created a droplet. I used Ubuntu, the 1804 stable build, very good tool, used it many times. The starter, I just chose the starter. Now, one of the tricky things is that I'm just using this for testing. So if you scroll over, they don't really show you. They do that default to the $40 a month, but you can use. This is a $5 per month service. Obviously bare bones, but good for testing is the way I see it. So use that. I use the San Francisco because I'm on the West Coast. Now SSH keys, you definitely need to use SSH keys. This is another security thing. If I click on any of this stuff and hover over it, it shows you all of the information. So I got to be very careful about that. But you definitely need the SSH key. When you set up the new key, it will walk you through the steps, and you need that for the next steps. Other than that, I don't think I changed the name. Obviously, this is my service right here, Revit Tester. So I changed the name. You can call it whatever you want. And I believe that's all I did to create the droplet, the web server. So that creates your remote server to put MySQL onto. So the next step to create the MySQL database on the server, I followed this go-to sheet on how to do it step by step. I will put the link into the notes section on the YouTube video. But basically, this walks you through step by step on how to get the database going. Now, one key to get into this is using the PowerShell. So I have my little cheat sheet here on how I did that. So basically, you would go to your regular PowerShell and you would type in SSH. They'll give you this information when they send you an email. I got address spelled wrong. Your IP address. So you would just type in SSH root because that's your login, your root login to get into the server with the IP address. Once you have your keys on your own system, it will say it's going to use this key, and then all you do is you type in your password. The key is just it's kind of like an underlying level of security. Once you set it up, it's kind of seamless. It just happens in the background. So all you have to do is type in your root, the IP address, and then your password. And that gets you into this, what's called a PowerShell or shell environment. So once you're in the shell environment, you can go into this how to set up the MySQL on the database. This is the exact one that I used to set it up. It walks you through the command line step by step. Once you have that set up, the next step is you have to create, one of the difficulties that I ran into is that you get your database set up and you try to log in with Revit Dynamo, and you keep getting this error message. I can't remember the error message, but it was a very frustrating error message because it didn't really give you a lot of information. I kept looking up this number that it gave you, and it didn't tell you a whole lot. The problem is that it wasn't recognizing my IP address when I was logging in as why it had the user login set as. So once you get through this tutorial on how to set up your MySQL database, it tells you how to log into the command prompt MySQL with the little forward asterisk. Once you get there, you need to go through and create this create user, and then you give it a name, and then you need to find out what the IP address is that you're coming from. So all I did is I went to I think I just went to Google. I typed in what's show my IP address, and it's a simple way of getting your IP address. So you would say create user, and then give it a username, and then use that IP address of your system that you're on, and then identify it by, and then you would put in, this is your password right here. So this is the command that you would enter to create a user, and then this was just showing how you could select users from the account. And then the most important piece is to grant all on the asterisk to that person with that IP address. Because what that does is that opens up the security. MySQL has a built-in security that keeps you from just kind of going in there and ping the database. So this was to me, this is the most critical step to set up and to get all this stuff working within on a remote server using MySQL. Because everybody on the websites we're talking about will just set it up as a local host. I did not want to use a local host. I wanted to use a remote server. And the issue with setting up the users correctly on the remote server, that's how I worked through being able to log in and being able to write the information directly out of Revit onto this remote server. So this is a very key step in the process, and that's my part one of setting up a remote database. Thanks, guys.